Majaribu yamekuwa sehemu ya maisha yangu.
I had a dream, and in that dream I saw a man. He told me that he has a message for me. He saw me a very long line of babies, and he said, now let me tell you, these children, they are helpless. Others are abandoned, others they lose their mother in labor time, so they have died because they have no helper. I've been sent to you to tell you that this is your work. Then I started from there. The young babies comes here because most of them, they are abandoned. They found by people passing through, or in the pit, or in the road, or in the market. And some of them, they lose their mother during labor time. And they just bring them here because they have no attendants.
She's really the heart of the orphanage. I left Uganda when Aunt Dorothy was still at the last place that she lived, and my first memories were about maybe 4 children. But she stayed in that place until she had about 20. You know, people were stepping all over each other. When I went back and saw where they were, I was really in awe. The new site for the orphanage is just beautiful. So Kasese district is in the west side of Uganda. We have the Rwenzori Mountains that are just these giant mountains. You know, you have to look up to see them. And it's just on the slopes. And probably if you're in a vehicle and as you drive up, then you'll see this throng of 7, 5, 4-year-olds just like run down from all their houses and just come to fall on you. It's a very quiet and peaceful place. Of course, given the chatter and crying of children, but when you're at the orphanage, that becomes like background noise, like background music. And you know, you go house by house and there'll be a house mother in each house, and you know, there's a million personalities. You know, there's the kids who will sort of, you know, come to you and want to chat, and the ones who are very quiet, and you kind of have to pull them out of their shells. We have musicians and drummers and singers and the whole 9 yards. It's quite a treat. It's 100 kids, you can imagine. It's a lot of fun. And to Dorothy, I like to refer to her as the baby whisperer, because there is not a child that she cannot nurse back to health. And seeing them, you know, thrive now as 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds and 15-year-olds, it's really a miracle that those children survived the situations that they were brought in, or you know, the health circumstances that they came in.
Our record for the neonatal death is still high, and many times we are failing, even when the mother has died after delivery. We are failing who to give the child. So we do request the entrance to the orphanage.
When I was still alone, I was struggling a lot to look for money for hospital and school fees and for welfare for the children. But currently, my heart is very settled because they have carried my big luggage or heavy luggage. I thank all the mothers from house 1 to house 7. Though we are giving them little money, but they never give up.
At the Nzirambi Orphanage, there's a very clear reason why this work is being done. And you know, it starts with Aunt Dorothy, who sees it as her calling. And, you know, my mother, Millie, who sees it as her, it's an attitude of it needs to get done.
I had to resign my job to help Dorothy do this work because Dorothy had begun to take up the first child on the 26th of August, 1984.
The facility that is there right now was built to accommodate 100 at the maximum. You know, for every child that comes in, that's another caretaker that has to be hired. And I think where the staffing capacity is also tapped out at the moment. So, I mean, on one hand, of course, you know, your resources are limited. And if you can't take in a newborn, you cannot, which my mother understands absolutely. Aunt Dorothy, on the other hand, is always devastated anytime she cannot take in a newborn. And she's been having a lot of health issues in the past. And I remember one time she said, well, see, God is punishing me because we're not taking in any more children, that's why. And so
we have failed totally not to take children because they are still coming and they are coming with their problems. Some of them, they don't have even a relative who can help them. And when you ask some people who brought the baby to ask him or her, how is your baby whom you brought here? He just abuses. Don't ask me about that baby. You refused that baby, that you don't want that baby. The baby died and you gained because that baby has died. We feel ashamed because we didn't know that the baby will not survive.
The facilities at the organization cannot support more than 20 babies at a go. But as I talk, we are now having 28 babies who are under 2 years. And this is a big challenge to the mothers because that means they work 24 hours a day. The mothers are few. If we had the funding, we would be recruiting more mothers to assist so that they work in shifts. But funding is little, and they are trying their level best to work and look after these young babies. It is also going to help us to change some of the cultural norms because it is a bad omen culturally to look after a child whose mother has died. There is a belief that if you look after such a baby, then you'll be able to lose your own children. And the organization is the only one in the district which is taking up babies at this age. And we hope it will change a lot of negative cultural beliefs.
it's quite the operation. I mean, if you went there and spent a day, it runs like clockwork. So, there's a time for all the house mothers to come and pick up, their food for the week, and it's all rationed out, and everyone gets their supplies for the week, and they have to last them that week. And, the timetables when water is, picked up from the river and brought into the orphanage, and it's a lot. When the children going to school, when are they coming back? And it's a lot. The idea behind it is that, these children are their children. Aunt Dorothy, in fact, for a very long time did not want anyone calling these children orphans, because then she'd say, did they tell you they didn't have a mother? Because she saw herself as their mother and she did not see them as orphans. The thing that my mother, I guess, has taught me is that, you don't have to be related to them through blood for them to be family.
Because I'm the first orphan in the orphanage. I'm 30 years old now. Dorothy says I came when I was a very little baby. And later, more kids started coming in. And some, because of some circumstances, have been taken back to their families and were not able to continue in their education. And I'm lucky that I'm one of those who stayed and took some education.
The children who've finished school so far, and an example is Ronnie, are able to reach back and help the other children who are at the orphanage. And so the more children that we can sort of get higher education for and have children in Uganda who've, you know, gone through the orphanage, grown up, and are now, you know, lawyers or solar engineers or accountants or working for the city that are also actively giving back to the orphanage.
I'd like to be a lawyer.
Veronica is the first of the children from the orphanage to go to university.
I'm at the university, I'm in my 3rd year. I really want to help people in my community, the children at the orphanage, because I would also like them to get a brighter future at the end of their education.
I know that the other girls who've also gone to university have done so because, you know, Veronica sort of trailed, you know, has gone before them, and so they look at her and they want to do the same thing. They all want to go to university.
Wow, that's been amazing. That's sign language. With my course, I can be able to work for the government, dealing with vulnerable people, the disabled people, the needy. That's being a social worker or a community worker. Yeah, that's what I'm doing, and I really love it.
And now, you know, it's the buzz thing at the orphanage. You know, so every child at the orphanage now says, you know, university is where it's at. That's how far we can go.
Currently, we have 5 children at the university. They are supporting 2 other children who are doing vocational training.
I was brought up just like they were. And it's a pleasure that I also help and continue helping such, because I know that a kid will never grow with same parents. Sometimes that external help comes in. I very much love giving that help whenever it is necessary.
So the question of adoption comes up a lot. And yes, the orphanage is open to people adopting children from there. It's just that the Ugandan government does not make adopting from Uganda easy. In 30 years, we've only had 1 child adopted. The one thing that my mother Millie is really struggling with is, you know, discussing what structures are there in the community and how can you sort of reinforce those to make sure that these babies are somehow taken care of within the community and do not have to be taken to an orphanage. What you see right now is the result of so many people's efforts and so many seeds that other people planted for, you know, years before that, you know, that we've maybe even long forgotten about. It's good.
Majaribu yamekuwa sehemu ya maisha yangu, we Bwana unisaidie nitie nguvu. Majaribu yamekuwa sifanya kiongozi mbele, we Bwana na roho yangu itie nguvu. DJ high, DJ high, DJ high, maombi yawe yawe.